Ok, vamos pro meu react do Gracie em Act 1, né? Começou com aquele disclaimer normal, né? Que você não pode. Não façam isso em casa, né? Tipo igual aquele WWE da manchete. Não façam isso em casa porque são só profissionais extremamente bem qualificados. E aqui a gente vê o clássico, né? Por esses jiu-jitsu vídeos. E aí o símbolo clássico aqui, tem um R aqui de copywriter, né? E é isso. Uau! É isso que eu quero ter no meu kimono. 88, feito pelo grande mestre Gracie. Aí começa a contar a história vamos lá. Originalmente da Escócia, George Gracie foi para o Brasil em 1801. Ele não tinha ideia que um dia os seus descendentes would form the largest sports family in history. Seria a maior família de esportes da história. Realmente, isso é uma porrada de Gracie, né? Vários lutadores faixas pretas, né? Um século depois, em 1914, Esai Maeda, assim como o Conde Koma, né? Também conhecido como Conde Koma, chefe da imigração japonesa colonial, né? Veio para o Brasil em 1914, né? Vamos lá. Ele foi um campeão mundial, um campeão de jiu-jitsu aposentado, and soon became a very close friend of George Grandson. E rapidamente ele se tornou amigo muito próximo do neto, né, do Jorge, né? Grandson é neto, né? Gastão Gracie. Um scholar in politics, político e da escola, né? E professor, sei lá, brasileiro. As a show of friendship, Maeda took the song of Gastão Carlos Gracie, The Art of Jiu-Jitsu. Como forma de amizade, né? Maeda ensinou ao filho do Gastão, Carlos Gracie, a arte do Jiu-Jitsu. Carlos passou, né, a tradição das técnicas do Jiu-Jitsu aos seus irmãos, né? Aí tá falando assim, né? Não chegou no Brasil, punk, não sei o quê. O primeiro, assim, da família a aprender de fato o Carlos Gracie, e ele passou pros demais irmãos, né? Despido de, assim, acho que de 140 pounds, eu não sei quanto é que é 140 pounds, mas acho que o mestre Hélio tinha 60 e poucos quilos, entendeu? Ele não era um cara muito pesado, não, né? Ele era o mais jovem dos irmãos Gracies, tudo alto demonstro, acho que ele ficou fora da... Acho que ele não tomou aula com o Carlos, não, acho que ele só ficava assistindo mesmo, pelo que conta da história do tio Hélio Gracie, né? Ó, por mais de 60 anos, sob a direção do Hélio Gracie, A Academia Jiu-Jitsu Gracie se estabeleceu sozinha como o melhor lugar para você ter instrução de jiu-jitsu no mundo. E isso representativamente tem assim, eles se representaram, né, contra praticamente todo, lutando e vencendo todos os estilos de artes marciais, né.
This is in Brazil, the year 1950. Hélio Gracie, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion and first sports legend in Brazilian history, has challenged the heavyweight champion of the world, Kimura, from Japan. In order to qualify and prove himself a worthy opponent for Kimura, Hélio is about to fight Kato, the number 2 Jiu-Jitsu man in the world. Kato was almost 40 pounds heavier than Hélio and considered by many people to be technically superior to the heavyweight champion Kimura. This match is scheduled for 3 rounds of 10 minutes each. At this point, I will take a few minutes to talk about the history of the Gracie family. At the turn of the century, in Brazil, it was always a big attraction in town fairs to have a ring set up so the rough and the tough could exhibit their skills. It was not rare to have international wrestlers who would present well-choreographed jumps and phony techniques, giving them the label and the appearance of real fights. Among those clowns, there was always the good guy, tall and well-built, who impressed everybody with his elasticity, and of course the villain, who would win all the matches except the last one. At the peak of this clownish era, a name sportively clean, inside as well as outside of the ring, started to gain notoriety. In the beginning, with that Scottish name, it did not sound like a Brazilian family. Gradually, though, it became known that the Gracies were not only Brazilians from head to toe, but a little more than that. They were from the north, by the delta of the Amazon. When the 5 Gracie brothers moved south, they had in their luggage a popular name and an art of self-defense that had its basic techniques learned from the skillful Japanese by Carlos, the oldest of the brothers. They brought to Rio the Jiu-Jitsu, which was more than just a bread-earning occupation. It became their reason of existence. Carrying the technique and the dignity of that sport like a flag, the Gracie family would go on to write the first and longest successful sports page in the history of that nation. Back in the 30s, Brazil did not have any outstanding sports figure. When the popularity of the Gracie family started to take the shape of a national pride, Hélio Gracie became the first sports idol in that country. Since the early age of 18, and with the insignificant weight of 140 pounds, he was a Brazilian champion. For more than 20 years, to maintain his championship title, he challenged and fought opponents of all styles and sizes, under the most adverse conditions, such as unlimited number of rounds, sometimes even half an hour each round, with or without a kimono. It made no difference. One of his free-for-all fights lasted for as long as 3 hours and 45 minutes, non-stop. It was the fight of the century. Think about it. Just to be sitting in a chair for 3 hours and 45 minutes is agonizing. Imagine a fight where your opponent...
Essa aqui eu tenho que dar uma... Ele tá falando da história do jiu-jitsu, né? Que a família Gracie é uma família que carregou a bandeira do jiu-jitsu. Sem eles a gente não poderia praticar o jiu-jitsu hoje. Caramba, uma aula da história do jiu-jitsu. E a gente tá assistindo a luta do Hélio Gracie com o Kato, né? Essa coisa toda que, tipo assim, quem não, né? Acho que ter botado a legenda foi uma sacada simples e inteligente da minha parte aqui, ó. Eu não preciso ficar explicando muita coisa, né? Já faço jiu-jitsu no YouTube, né? Porque é o mínimo de esforço e o máximo de eficiência. Então não preciso falar muito, só vou falar quando é pontual. Mas é uma luta de 3 horas e 45 minutos, né? Porra, o Hélio 3 horas e 25, acho, né? Nossa, o cara lutou 3 horas, meu Deus do céu. contra um oponente mais pesado e tecnicamente mais técnico. Ele era o 2 do mundo, mas é considerado mais técnico que o número 1 do mundo. Então você vê o grau de dificuldade. E aí na década de 30, o Hélio Gracie, né, ele se torna o primeiro, tipo assim, o que o Ayrton Senna foi na minha década de 90, o Hélio Gracie é o primeiro grande ídolo do Brasil, né, esportivo, né, vamos por assim dizer. É isso. Não precisa pausar, eu não pauso, mas eu precisava falar isso assim para posteridade.
Opponent, who happens to be about 40 pounds heavier, is trying to hurt you with as much as he can with everything he's got. It was the longest uninterrupted fight in the history of mankind. The weight difference was never a reason for us not to enter a ring and prove our point. We have countless times matched up against much heavier opponents. Hélio, my father, even fought opponents double his weight. My uncle Oswald, at 140 pounds, fought John Baldi at 360 pounds. That's a 220-pound difference. My uncle choked him out in 2 minutes. There were still people arriving at the stadium and the fight was already over. When the Reader's Digest, in April of 1943, published an article with the title Boxing versus Jiu-Jitsu in a Fight to the Death, in which a boxer had knocked out a Jiu-Jitsu fighter, Hélio Gracie contacted O Globo, the biggest newspaper in Brazil, making himself available to prove the superiority of Jiu-Jitsu by fighting 5 boxers on the same night. He never received a reply. During his fighting years, he also challenged the famous Primo Carnera, Exer Charles, and the legendary Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber. They all declined to fight boxing against Jiu-Jitsu. We have newspaper clippings that cover a time span of more than a half a century. It is an outstanding testimony of this fighting crusade. Now, let us observe the rest of the fight. After the takedown, Hélio on the bottom is placing Cato in his guard, a classic defensive position. He is trying to put his opponent between his legs and get ready for his move. He will place one hand on the collar and with the second hand, he will apply his favorite move, the choke.
É legal saber que o Lance faz o movimento favorito, né? Do Hélio era o estrangulamento. Até porque ele era muito fraco e às vezes o cara resiste muito no braço, mas no estrangulamento não tem jeito, né? Ou bate ou dorme.
Effectiveness of the move puts Cato to sleep immediately. But Hélio is afraid he might be faking. So he tells the referee that Cato might be sleeping. And the referee replied that Cato did not tap. Hélio realized that he could not be faking it for that long and pushes him away. Then we have the referee trying to revive Cato. The strong man with the white shirt is Kimura, the heavyweight champion of the world. At this point, Kimura challenged Hélio Gracie to fight for the world championship. It would be the first time ever that a Jiu-Jitsu championship of the world would be fought outside of Japan. This is Kimura, the best Jiu-Jitsu fighter that Japan has ever produced. For 16 years in a row as the Japanese national champion and 5 years as the world champion.
Kimura... que o Kimura tá sorrindo, ele é gigante, acho que perto do Hélio. Ele parece ser um cara maneiro, assim, tá ligado?
Was 80 pounds heavier and 9 years younger than Hélio. Due to this tremendous weight difference, Kimura had declared in the newspapers that if Hélio could resist him for 3 minutes, he should be considered the winner. Unfortunately, we only have on film 2 minutes of a fight that lasted for 13 minutes. Hélio never expected to defeat Kimura. The reason he fought was to see if the world champion could surprise him technically. The conclusion that Hélio came to was if they were in the same weight class, he would have won the match. The Japanese always want to hide the ancient techniques of jiu-jitsu. That's the origin of judo. It's just a sportive aspect of the traditionally effective jiu-jitsu. Hélio Gracie, without ever leaving Brazil, had raised the standards of jiu-jitsu to a new level. He made such an impression on the champion Kimura with the techniques that he presented that after this fight, Kimura went to the Gracie Academy to invite Hélio to teach at the #1 academy in Japan. After considerations, Hélio declined. Hélio Gracie is still teaching in Brazil today and is recognized throughout the world as a living legend.
O Kimura está quase pegando o tio Hélio na Kimura, mas a história diz que ele não bateu.
These fights took place in Brazil in 1975. The karate team preferred to fight on top.
1975, um ano antes de eu nascer. Eu nasci em 1985, 15 de abril de 1985.
As they were sure they would not end up on the ground. So mats were placed around the arena to prevent them from running away. Once the top position is accomplished, unless the fighter is familiar with the right way to escape, he is very vulnerable to get hit. The jiu-jitsu representative on top was only 13 years old. These matches were scheduled for 10 minutes each. As it turns out, all the fights put together did not last more than 10 minutes.
Toma de porrada na cara. O cara tá tentando sobreviver no inferno. Saiu o desafio do jiu-jitsu contra o karatê. Uma vez na montada, ele está numa posição muito superior ali. Está tentando pegar agora, acho que foi com o braço.
To avoid getting hit in the face, the man on the bottom rolls over onto his stomach, which does not solve his problem. Then he will tap out or pass out.
Pegou, o cara foi levando porrada na cara, ele rola, fica de cara pro chão.
In this fight of mine, notice the karate man getting ready for the perfect punch. I am keeping my distance.
Aí a gente vê o Rorion lutando, né? Sempre na distância Gracie.
Once the inevitable clinch happens, there's not much he can do. I'm taking my time and establishing my base on top of him.
Caiu numa meia guarda ali.
He is bucking, trying to hit my head on the ground.
Passou, foi pra montada.
This is Carlos Gracie. Notice that he cannot hit me from his position. But since I'm on top, I can hit him.
Segurou a cara pelo kimono ali, tá tentando bater de baixo, tá
I will
vendo?
place one hand on the
Olha como era
collar
a mentalidade,
and
né?
get ready to put the second hand around his neck for the choke. Observe his legs going limp as a result of the choke, and as he gets up, he doesn't know what happened.
Pagou ele e voltou assim.
In this next match, my brother Helson dashes into his opponent,
Vitória do
maintaining a
Rorion.
close distance to avoid getting hit.
Olha o Helson Gracie aí na luta. A distância já agarrou ali, ó. Já
With a
pegou
nice
ele.
throw, he will take the fight to the ground. He will position himself for a series of punches.
Agarrou, foi puxando com o Helson. O Helson tava pegando muito no...
And as the opponent lifts his arm to keep Helson away, he's caught in an arm lock.
O Helson deu muita porrada na cara dele, ó. Muita porrada na cara. Depois jogou no armlock ali, pegou fudido. Aí não teve jeito. O Nelson também é agressivo demais, é o tubarão da família, mano. É o tubarão da família.
This is the Jiu-Jitsu man. Even though he gets nicked as he comes in, he manages to stay in the clinch, flips his opponent and takes the top position. By the leg movement from the person on the bottom, you can see he doesn't know what to do. He's really lost. In order not to get hit in the face, he is trying to turn around, rolling over to his stomach.
Foi virar, deu o pescoço, né? Tipo de quem não sabe nada de chão.
His arm got stuck, and when he finally manages to turn over, he gets choked from behind. My brother Halls, on the left, in this next fight, will take on the owner of the
My
karate
brother
school,
Halls,
who happens to be about 40 pounds heavier than him.
40 quilos mais pesado, estamos falando do Halls Gracie. Possivelmente que o pessoal fala que
He
foi o melhor
slips under
Gracie.
his first punch, and observe how easily he picks up his opponent.
Na distância, o jogo da distância.
He establishes the
Chegou,
top position.
errou o soco, cinturou, levantou e plau. Cara, todo mundo fala que o Halls, ou Hollis Gracie, né? Os Gracie chamam ele de Hollis Gracie, foi o Gracie mais técnico de todos, né? Junto ali com o Carson na Figueiredo Magalhães, ele tinha as aulas lá dele. E caramba, esse aí foi um monstro que infelizmente morreu cedo e no acidente de asa delta no Rio de Janeiro. Não deu continuidade aí, né? Grande Hollis Gracie. Grande Hollis Gracie.
Hits the man a couple of times to soften him up.
O desespero do karateca, né? Já deu as costas ali.
And then goes for the choke.
Pum! Tira uma porrada ali na cabeça. Uma ali outra. Aí não teve jeito. O cara tentou levantar. Ele encaixou certinho no pescoço. E não teve jeito, dormiu.
In this match, my brother is sparring with a former national heavyweight wrestling champion who now coaches in Southern California.
Aqui, cara, já começa a parte, se eu não me engano, que o Rorion foi para os Estados Unidos. É uma parte pré-UFC, tá ligado? Não sei se é o... Cara, tá parecendo... Ele falou My Brother, né? Deve ser o... Não parece o Rickson nem o Royce. Aí deve ser o... Caramba, esqueci o nome dele agora, mas vamos ver a porrada.
Wrestlers are familiar with ground grappling. They develop a good sense of balance. Speed and strength are also common qualities in that sport. Wrestlers will usually have an advantage over the puncher and kicker due to their familiarity to ground grappling. Unlike Jiu-Jitsu, in the sport of wrestling, the objective is to pin the opponent's back to the ground for a few seconds in order to win the match. Being on the bottom does not necessarily mean you're losing the fight. The Jiu-Jitsu practitioner does not mind having his back on the ground as long as he can get his opponent in a choke, a footlock, or an arm lock. Wrestling is a great sport, but Jiu-Jitsu is more practical for street fighting.
Tá, laçou o braço esquerdo ali, ó. Bateu.
It is a fact that most street fights will end on the ground. Here is an example that by knowing Jiu-Jitsu, you can subdue the opponent without having to hurt him.
Então,
after the takedown, the Jiu-Jitsu representative established his position on top. Now, he's in the position where he could hurt the person on the bottom. But there's no need for that. As the opponent turns his back, it's time for the choke.
Dois tapas na nuca do sujeito.
In this fight, which took place in California, I'm fighting a former world champion of kickboxing who asked not to be identified. Notice that he made sure to put Vaseline on his body to make it more difficult for me to grab him. The wrapping tape that he has on his hands increases the power of his hits because it protects his hands. It should be used under gloves. To prevent him from running away, I decided to corner him against the ropes. Notice that he has his arms wrapped around the ropes.
Mano, o cara passou vaselina no corpo. Se o cara fez isso, o cara é um sujo, né? E outra, ele não confia na técnica dele. Se você faz uma luta e você precisa utilizar, porra, mas vou levar uma faca na dúvida, pô, você tá errado. É tua arte, por exemplo, o jiu-jitsu, não. Você é a própria luta, você é mesmo sua própria arma, entendeu?
This would make him a very easy target. However, I knew the fight was going to be shown on TV, and I didn't want to give the public the impression that jiu-jitsu's only alternative would be the violence of punching and kicking. So I took the approach of subduing him. After all, there's more to a fight than just punching and kicking. He's spending so much energy trying to keep me away from him that he doesn't have the angle to be effective on his attack. He wants to hold on to the ropes because he doesn't want to go down. He's not familiar with ground grappling.
Não, o cara tá tipo se debatendo como se fosse um porco, né? Tipo assim, caralho, você sabe que vai pra baixo, né?
Now, I will move him away from the corner and take him down. He tries to pull himself out of the ring by holding on to the rope,
isso é malandragem de
hoping
luta.
that if we fell out,
Você deixa o cara cansar um pouco, ou deixa o cara fazer bastante força, entendeu? Um porco cansado pega ele.
the fight would start again standing. In this fight, since we are comparing styles, we had agreed not to stop the match for any reason. Observe his foot hooking on the outside of the mat. He does not want to be pulled into the middle of the ring again. Now I'm going to hit him a couple of times on the face to force him to turn over. All that Vaseline only made my hands get into the choke a lot easier. These next few matches happened in Brazil. There's a kickboxer with the white trunks and the jiu-jitsu representative in the green trunks.
Aí já é se eu não me engano, no desafio do jiu-jitsu contra a luta livre. Cara, vou pegar um cafezinho, vou dar um pausa e já volto.
These matches are scheduled for 3 rounds of 5 minutes each. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to be aware that most street fights are going to go into a clinch and eventually end up on the ground.
Ou seja, reforçando a lógica Gracie, né? Normalmente numa luta de rua, né? O cara mexeu com a tua mulher, você foi tomar satisfação com ele. Vocês vão querer começar no nocaute. Vai ter a distância, o cara vai querer te dar um soco na cara e vice-versa. Depois, o que vai acontecer? Você vai agarrar e vai levar pro chão. Aí quem souber mais chão, é isso.
We are not used to seeing fights depicted as they really are. We usually see them presented in a sportive way or choreographed for TV or the movies. Boxing, karate, and all the other striking arts are limited by rules that will stop the match because these sports do not offer any alternatives after the clinch. As they fall on the corner of the mat, the referee will try to drag them both to the center of the ring. There he is grabbing the fighter by the foot.
Olha a torcida, cara.
The kickboxer, now on the
O
bottom,
povo gosta de ver o pau
tries to
comendo.
reach for the rope in order to pull himself out of the ring. He's using his feet to kind of drag himself to the edge. Knowing how to punch and kick is very good, but you can't limit yourself to only that, since 90% of the real fights will end up on the clinch and eventually go to the ground. Often enough in this kind of events, fights happen outside of the mat.
Porrada estancou, né?
In desperation, the kickboxer will turn onto his stomach. In a last attempt, he tries to pull himself out of the ring, but the crowd prevents him from escaping. The jiu-jitsu man has a choke around his neck and will squeeze until he passes out. Once you get the right choke in, it will take only a few seconds to put somebody out. In this match, the jiu-jitsu man has only black trunks. He's fighting an amateur boxing champion. This is a good example of how, when a person tries to stop an opponent by using punches, it can be more difficult than you might think. Even though the boxer throws some good punches in, it is very difficult to avoid a clinch. And down they go. Although these hits can be painful, it is hard to find the right spot to knock someone out.
Passou pegando 100 kg, toma ali cabeçada.
If you know some punching and kicking, back yourself up with some jiu-jitsu. You will see a fight from a different and more realistic perspective.
By the way, what saved this boxing is that when you just enough
The jiu-jitsu man is fighting simply to establish a good position.
Simplesmente para estabilizar uma boa posição. É um domínio muito gigante.
What saved this boxer from a massacre is the fact that he knew just enough jiu-jitsu techniques. When you are that close, it's very difficult to develop the power to knock somebody else with a strike.
Então acho que é o Marco Ruas e o Pinduca, né?
Punches and hits at this point are mainly used to distract your opponent.
Grande mestre Pinduca, grande mestre, duas lendas aí. Porra, mano, Gracie em action é foda.
Even though it seems that they are just grabbing onto each other, they are not. They are aiming for a specific position. There's a reason for everything they do. All the hooks, all the leg movements, everything has a specific reason.
É isso mesmo, o Pinducão e o Marco Ruas. Marco Ruas depois virou campeão do UFC, hoje em dia o Pinduca é a faixa vermelha de Jiu-Jitsu.
It can be hard on your hand punching somebody on the head like that.
Pinduca lendário da Carson Gracie. É, dá pra ver, agora é o Marco Ruas mesmo. Toma ali porrada, o Marco Ruas era bom nos dois, tá? Só que não tão bom quanto o Pinduca no chão, né? Mas o Marcos era safo, ele sabia de chão. Cara, o Pinduca sempre foi um cara grande, né? Pô, imagina o Preta do Carson Gracie, né? Não só o Preta, mas ele já é instrutor do Carson. O Pinduca é foda. Todos os dois, né? Cara, joelhada da Ari. Ah, dos 100 quilos, pode ver. Olha a maldade dos caras.
When the bell rang, they did not want to let go of each other. You notice that they would get so emotionally involved that the referee will have to step in and pry them apart, like a pair of pit bulls. In this next match, scheduled for 3 rounds of 5 minutes, between the Jiu-Jitsu representative in black trunks and a kickboxer who also had done some Thai boxing training.
O Black Trunks normalmente é associado àqueles caras lá do Havaí que surfavam, metiam uma porrada na galera e é isso. Então deve ser o Helson, não? Pode ser o Helson, pode não ser.
This fight came about after one of my brothers fought a kickboxer in the street and quickly subdued him. The kickboxer started spreading the rumor that it was not true, so my brother went back to his studio with some relatives and students and choked out a whole bunch of black belts. When they left the place, it was as if a gas bomb had been set off. Everybody was sleeping. A few years later, dedicated to some Thai boxing training, the head instructor of the studio went to the newspaper and told them that he was ready to finish with the reign of the Gracie Academy. This is what originated this match. Once the clinch happens, the Thai boxer wants to hold on to the ropes in order to avoid going to the ground. The referee rushes and untangles his hands. And when he gets too close, he takes a headbutt himself. There's no protective gear of any kind. You can't get any more real than that.
Segura na corda pra nem pra baixo. Malandragem de luta, né?
The Gracie Academy representative, now on top, has been specifically instructed not to use submission holds, but rather to punish his opponent for his declarations on the newspaper. He should hit him only on the face.
A porrada na cara dele. Pagar o que ele falou. Eita porra.
Once we establish a comfortable position, we take our time and handle the fight the way we want. Total control for the Gracie Academy representative. Once again, we can see how vulnerable people are when they are not familiar with jiu-jitsu fighting techniques. It took several months of physiotherapy to repair the nerve damage to that Thai boxer's face. He doesn't have a place to hide. To stop the massacre, the Thai boxer's cornerman will throw in the towel. Somebody pulls it out. The referee grabs the towel back, wipes his face with it before finally stopping the match. This brawler of 220 pounds is solid muscle, with 180 fights and only one loss. His opponent in the black trunks is a 230-pound boxer who has a black belt in karate and claims to be able to break 14 ice blocks with one punch. He said he was going to beat up this brawler and then a member of the Gracie Academy. Notice how easily the brawler picks up the boxer and throws him on the ground. His wild and unorthodox style makes him an unpredictable opponent. Even in this kind of wild fight, the clinch is inevitable. The brawler does not know how to take advantage of a position like this, but he'll punch the boxer's face. Notice the punch coming in as soon as they break that hold. The boxer wanted to use gloves because he was concerned about hurting his opponent too much. Instead, he was told not to worry about that and try to hurt the brawler as much as he could. This brawler doesn't mind getting hit as long as he can throw a few punches.
Imagina a mãozada do Zulu, né? Muita força.
He will now grab the boxer in a headlock. He will ignore his punches and squeeze until the boxer passes out. Observe the boxer's arm going limp, and the wild man will slap his back and drop him out cold. It is important to have a referee who is familiar with this type of fight and can recognize when the fighter is out to prevent the choke from causing irreversible damage or even death. In this next and final match, we will have the same brawler with 220 pounds fighting my brother Rickson at 180 pounds.
Rickson e Zulu, meu amigo.
Check this warm-up.
Eita porra. Só clássico, mano. Então o Zulu era fisicamente perfeito, mano. O Negão, o Helson na frente, Hélio Gracie, trazendo o Rickson, Reison ali também. Cara, o pelotão Gracie, né? Ele trouxe.
In a match like this, there's no point system. It's normally win or lose.
Tem sistema de pontos,
This match
ganhar ou perder.
is scheduled for 3 rounds of 10 minutes each. The man with the glasses and the white shirt is Grandmaster Hélio Gracie.
Olha o tio Ed lá.
If you have to fight an opponent who is bigger and stronger than you, it is not a good idea to try to exchange punches with him. Our objective is not to give the other fighter the distance he needs to hit. You want to stay too far or too close. A hit from somebody like that is the last thing you want. The jumping around you see is in hopes to disguise his approach.
Rickson, Gracie, a lenda, meu irmão.
Due to the big weight difference, it might be difficult to flip the opponent. One has to wait for the right moment. Being on the bottom does not necessarily mean that you are losing the fight, especially when you're fighting a heavier opponent. You may have to wait for a while for the right opportunity to turn things around. Jiu-Jitsu techniques will give you the elements to wait for that opportunity. It is smart to keep the opponent very close, so he cannot develop the distance for a powerful hit. Strikes to the kidneys can be very effective on the long run. In one of my father's fights, his opponent took such a beating to the kidneys that after the fight, he was urinating fragments of the kidney. Remember that in reality, it is much more difficult than you realize to use fancy kicks and those supposedly deadly punches, especially when you're dealing with someone as strong as this man. There's a good chance they might not work. As you can see, in this kind of fight, they are not trying to make it look good for the camera or the audience. They are trying to survive. In their first fight, 3 years before, the brawler was sure of victory and fought much more aggressively, but that didn't work. He was defeated with a chokehold in 12 minutes. Now, in this rematch, Rickson's second professional fight, the brawler is a little more apprehensive.
O cara tá mais esperto porque sabe que o jiu-jitsu é foda.
The difference between the jiu-jitsu taught at the Gracie Academy and all the other martial arts styles, including other styles of jiu-jitsu, is that the evolutionary process of our teaching methods is the result of extensive research by Grandmaster Gracie. Not only did he have to adapt some of the traditional Japanese techniques to accommodate his lack of strength, but more important was his contribution as a teacher, developing the teaching method so efficient that he could teach virtually anyone. The Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Torrance, California, is the only organization that upholds those teaching standards and is endorsed by my father, Gracie.
Inclusive em 2024 ainda tá lá até hoje, né? Só que com os irmãos Hiron e Renner, que são os filhos do Horion.
The referee will stop the fight and drag both contenders to the middle of the mat. But notice that the brawler is going to sneak in a punch during the break. The referee will call his attention, but since this is not a point system fight, there's nothing he can do about it. He can't disqualify the brawler for that. Everyone who looks at martial arts as a means of self-defense is really looking for the effectiveness that can be found at the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy. The brawler now is trying to apply the same choke as he did on the boxer in the previous fight, but the Gracie brother knows better and avoids that.
Ele foi pegar uma guilhotina ali, porra, mano. A diferença física é muito impressionante.
Once again, the brawler goes for the choke hold. Once again, the Gracie brother prevents him from succeeding. Believe it or not, the safest thing to do when fighting somebody like this is to stay as close as possible so he doesn't have the distance to hit you with the effectiveness that he would like to. Knowing the proper techniques of Jiu-Jitsu gives you the confidence to lunge in. Keep in mind that Jiu-Jitsu was developed so that the little man can fight the big man. Sometimes when you have a strong opponent like this, simply holding on, it forces you into waiting for the right opportunity so that you can make your move. That is the end of the first round. They go back to the action. The big man now is trying some intimidation techniques. The Gracie brother did not hear the bell ring, and he checks with the referee to see if the round has begun. The big man is tired, and he wouldn't mind waiting a little longer. The Gracie brothers knows that, and is going to start pressing the buttons and push the fight to his pace. As they fall down, the brawler almost accomplishes a crucial top position, but proper leg work prevents it. In a fight of this magnitude, there's much more happening than one realizes. Every little movement, no matter how insignificant it might seem, has a place in the overall result. Just like in a chess game, the way you move a little pawn may decide the result of the whole game. You can actually feel your opponent's thoughts. It is important that you don't think they are just holding on to each other. The jiu-jitsu man knows that his opponent is tired and is preparing to make his move. He works his way around the back of his opponent and gradually climbs on his back. And just like those anacondas from the north of Brazil, by the delta of the Amazon, he'll wrap himself around his prey. The end is near. In his last attempt to escape, the desperate man rolls around. He even tries eye gouging, but with the squeeze on the neck, the wild man taps out, and the tradition of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy lives on.
Ele tentou botar o dedo no olho. Caralho. Sombrei. Eu sinceramente pensei que tu vinha